If you're tracking macros to lose weight, stop. It's setting you up for failure. So let me tell you what you should do instead if you want to be successful. Hi, it's Kara and welcome back to my channel. I work with women to help them lose weight and decrease inflammation in a sustainable way. That means no dieting, counting macros, or needing prepackaged products. In today's videos, I am going to explain the 5 negative consequences of counting macros, but I'm also going to give you 4 more effective weight loss solutions to do instead. If you want to look and feel your best without having to rely on dieting and haven't subscribed already, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to be notified every single time I put out a new video. So tracking your macros can be a useful tool when it's used by the right people like high-performing athletes. And sure, it can be effective in certain time frames, like when one of these said high-performing athletes treat their body like an elite race car and need it to perform at a high level during training stints. But otherwise, the practice leads to undesirable long-term results. Before I get into the specifics of why you shouldn't count macros and what you should do instead, for those of you who consider it, I want to explain what macros are and what it means to track them. So, what are macros exactly? Macro is short for macronutrient, the grams of nutrients that provide your body with energy. 1 gram of carbohydrate has 4 calories. So does 1 gram of protein. 1 gram of fat has 9 calories. Macro tracking, macro counting, or tracking your macros basically just refers to the habit of tracking how many grams of carbohydrates, protein, and fat you have per meal or per day. The most common method starts with estimating energy needs, aka calories, and dividing them up between percentages of carbohydrates, protein, and fat. And that's the basics of macro counting. So let's talk about why you don't need to count macros. Maybe you're an athlete with certain goals, and because you're so tuned into your body's needs, you have to prioritize certain macronutrients to support certain functions of your body by really fueling and recovery. Even still, nutrition is never this black and white, especially for the average person walking down the street. For the athlete, he or she tracks carbs not to lose weight, but to actually make sure they don't underfuel their body during intensive training. Tracking your macros as a shortcut to weight loss can lead to an unhealthy obsession that can create an unhealthy relationship with both food and your body. But the issues with macro counting don't stop there. So let me give you the 5 reasons you shouldn't count macros. The first reason is that it leads to an unhealthy mindset. When you think about it, it's pretty clear why this happens. If you've ever met a macro tracker, you know how hard they can be on themselves when they go over their macros. But when they're under, they're scouring for food just to make sure that they reach that upper limit. It kind of reminds me of a kid with unused arcade tokens. The same type of thinking can cause you to use exercise as punishment for food that you ate. But those are the more trivial results. It can lead to much bigger issues like eating disorders and body dysmorphia. Healthy eating is all about balance. Your food should fuel your body, give it the nutrients it needs to survive and avoid disease. If counting macros stops you from this, it's clearly not a healthy weight loss solution. The second reason you should track macros is because we don't eat nutrients, we eat food. Think about your last meal. What did you eat? For most of you, you're thinking about the types of foods you ate. Maybe a bowl of oatmeal for breakfast or a sandwich for lunch. And that's the thing about food. It's more than energy and nutrition. Sure, it is both of those things, but it's also a mental and emotional thing. Tracking this and counting that can easily become a stressful thing. In fact, studies have shown that dieters have higher stress levels. Food is just an important part of mental and emotional health, just as it is for physical health. The other day, I was eating one of my go-to lunch staples. It had beans and greens and veggies and a bunch of other yummy ingredients in it. That simple meal gave me a healthy dose of both protein and carbs and healthy fats. Plus, it also gave me a big serving of fiber and other key nutrients my body needs. Focusing on whole food sources only ensures I consume the right amount of macros each day. It also provides my body with all the vitamins and minerals I need to stay healthy. But when I used to be focused on just the protein and fat and carbs, I often overlooked the stuff my body needed to support my immune system, my brain health, energy levels, and decrease inflammation. I ended up not eating for my health, but just to hit my macros. This is one huge mistake I see so many make as well. Remember, and this is so key, protein, fat, and carbs are not food groups. They are macronutrients found in whole foods. Food is not the sum of its part. So instead of focusing so much on macros, focus on eating more whole plant-based foods to give you all your body needs to thrive. If you're interested in more tips to keep you going on your weight loss journey, be sure to join my email. Each week I share a practical tip to help you lose weight and keep it off without dieting, counting calories, or feeling deprived. Plus, it's the go-to resource to show you how to overcome your inflammation. I put the link below to join. Okay, the third reason you shouldn't track your macros is because it's so stressful. Now, I'm not going to say tracking your macros will lead to a nervous breakdown, although maybe it will. But as I mentioned a moment ago, dieting, tracking, and counting lead to increased stress levels. And unchecked stress affects things like our sleep, hormones, and you know what else? Weight. It's difficult to reject diet culture and not get caught up in the latest diet trends. But when you let go of external tools like tracking your macros, you'll have more time, you'll feel freer, and have fewer things to worry about. But you've got to make sure you're focused on the right thing, which we'll get to here shortly. When you're so focused on figuring out what you can and can't eat, everything else in life may become less important. Your mental health, your relationships, your career, they are all no longer a priority. No diet or way of eating is superior to your well-being, mentally and physically. All right, the fourth reason you shouldn't track macros is that it's not actually accurate. I hate to break it to you, but counting macros isn't an accurate science. Unless you're doing all your own cooking and then meticulously weighing every single piece of food on a scale. But if that's not the case, then your numbers won't always be right. And you might say, but Kara, I'm just so careful to follow my tracking app. You could track everything you eat on your tracking app, but you're relying on the accuracy of the person preparing your food if you're not eating at home. Let me give you an example. So let's say you go for lunch at your favorite spot. You know the macros in your order because they've posted it on their menu. But humans aren't machines. We don't always follow exact measurements. So maybe instead of measuring the chicken, the chef decides to eyeball it on that particular day. Instead of getting what you think is 6 ounces of chicken, you actually end up getting 8. Most restaurants use eyeball measurements rather than exact, precise ones each time. And if you're counting your macros, your total could be completely off without you even knowing it. Reason number 5, it leads to a poor relationship with food. Of all the reasons not to track macros, especially not long term, it's this. Tracking macros can easily lead to a poor relationship with food. We are obsessed with food in America, but it hasn't led to healthier eating. Quite the opposite, actually. On one end of the spectrum, we have obesity, and on the other, eating disorders. And it's easier to fall into an obsession with food than you think. I know from experience, but why does this happen? Well, for starters, you're putting yourself in a very restricted calorie setting. You basically have eliminated your opportunity to explore different foods and find enjoyment in them. Remember, part of the reason we eat is for enjoyment. The diet industry might not tell you that, but it's true. When you have to weigh every single ingredient and calculate how you can fit each meal into your day, eating is no longer enjoyable. Food rules become a headache and force you to really miss out on key nutrients. It's not uncommon to see someone who's tracking macros to eat the same exact thing each day because it's just easier not to have to count everything out in a meal. Okay, so now you understand why not to track macros. But if I just leave you there, just tell you what not to do, then you're left asking, so what do I do instead? And that's a great question because we can't just stop doing something without replacing it with an effective solution. So let me give you 4 things to do instead of macro counting. First, go get a food journal, and by that I just mean a notebook. For my clients who are just starting on their journey to fat loss and or just developing a healthier relationship with food in general, I'll have them keep a food journal. And I know you're probably wondering, how is a food journal different than macro counting? It is. It's a lot different. With a food journal, I'm not asking them to track specific numbers like macros or calories. The purpose of the food journal is to uncover habits and identify hunger and fullness cues, mood and stress levels. I want them to identify the why, the how, and the when behind their eating habits. Being mindful of what we eat is such an important part of developing sustainable nutrition. It allows you to nourish your body, but also enjoy your favorite treats every once in a while. My clients are testament that it works. When you develop a healthy balance and incorporate healthy nutrition, you can reach and maintain a healthy weight without having to count this or track that. The second thing to do instead of tracking macros is to not vilify food groups. There are low-fat diets telling you to eliminate fat. There are low-carb diets saying you should reduce carbs. And of course, there are even no-carb diets that tell you to eliminate them altogether. If it's a food group, then you can be certain there is a diet telling you to remove it. But when we do this, when we see foods as general macronutrient categories, we treat important food groups as the enemy. And here's the problem. With these ways of eating, they throw a blanket over entire groups of food, lumping all of them together. Both of the healthy and the not so healthy get thrown out together. This is where you find low-carb diets telling you not to eat fruit and vegetables because they're carbs. Because when you take the approach that carbs are bad, then you interpret that to mean all carbs, both the healthy and the unhealthy. It's one thing to reduce or even eliminate if you feel so inclined, sugar, baked goods and treats. But including fruit in that category will deprive you of so many key vitamins and minerals your body needs. So instead of vilifying food groups, you need to focus on fueling your body, looking for and eating foods that provide your body with everything it needs instead of seeing foods as general macronutrient categories. All right, number 3, focus on balance. What you really want with tracking your macros is the good result. Weight loss. You probably didn't start or are planning to start for the negative unintentional consequences like a food obsession. But the all or nothing mindset can creep into so many facets of nutrition. It's the mindset that says you have to be perfect 100%, otherwise you failed. And this is a mindset that's ingrained in those who decide to adopt this type of diet. But none of us can reach perfection. So obviously it's not a long-term solution. So instead of focusing on something that won't lead to long-term success, focus on a solution that will. Adopt a way of eating that allows you to develop a healthy balance. Sure, you might slip up or enjoy your favorite dessert from time to time, but isn't that one of the good things about food? Finding joy in it? Now, I'm not telling you to use food as a reward because that's not good either. Instead, become mindful of what you're eating and why you're eating it. Focus on eating healthy, nutritious foods the majority of the time. And then plan for those times you're going to indulge in your favorite treat. Don't take some kind of hands-off approach with your food, where you might have a plan one day and totally off the next. Instead, take control of your nutrition and be prepared for each meal. The fourth thing to do instead of tracking macros is to eat more whole food, plant-based sources. Now, I'm not telling you to only eat bland, boring greens because that's not healthy either. I hope by now you realize how important I think it is to enjoy what you eat, plus get a variety of nutrients from your food. What I'm encouraging you to do is to focus on eating more fruits and vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds, and legumes. Load your plate up with these kinds of foods, the ones that promote health and reduce disease, and leave less room for the overly processed foods and large amounts of meat and dairy. I'm not telling you to eliminate them altogether, but instead just work on eating less of them. When you eat this way, you don't have to be so concerned about portion size. The previously mentioned foods actually contain fewer calories per serving, which means you can load up on them without worrying about gaining weight because of them. And the best part, they contain large amounts of fiber, which has been shown to reduce fat and prevent weight gain. So grab your phone, delete that macro tracking app, and give yourself the freedom to stop counting your macros. Because by incorporating these 4 macro tracking alternatives, you'll be able to achieve your weight loss without the headache of having to do math every time you want to eat something. And if you liked this video, be sure to subscribe to my channel so you catch my simple nutrition tips each week to help you reach your goals, maintain them, and build upon them.